Hello, friends, and welcome to Profoundish. I'm today's host, Weston, and I'll be joined by Alex shortly, where we're going to be talking about questions that we wish we could have asked celebrities, family, just whatever might be burning on our minds, as well as playing a game of truth or dare with each other, where we get to ask each other questions. It's the questions episode. You're listening to Profoundish. This way, like when I get sick, I get like really angry about being sick. I
hate it.
Like I hate it, yes. But I'm also like offended that I'm sick. Like, damn it, I'm better than this.
Okay, yeah, I know what you mean. Yeah,
you know what I mean?
I'm above this. Why is this happening to me?
Especially since I don't get sick often. It's pretty rare.
You and I are very similar in that regard. Yeah, I don't really get sick either. I'm on a long streak right now, but I'm trying not to talk about it because I don't want to jinx it.
Right.
I think last time I had any sort of sickness, this includes allergies. Like allergies really affected me. Last time I got sick was when I got COVID, which I know you avoided. But right. I got COVID in the fall of 2021. So not even a stuffy nose since then. So knock on wood, but yeah. It's gonna hit me at one point. I know it is. Something will.
I was about the same because the last time I had been sick, in a way that I remember anyway. I don't know, maybe I had some some rougher days, but sometimes I like stay up too late and don't get a lot of sleep. So sometimes I don't know if I'm sick or if I'm just worn down. But the last time I remember being sick was 2020. It was like January 2020, like leading into COVID stuff. And at that time, you know, COVID wasn't like a big thing yet. It was just becoming a thing. So I don't know if I had COVID or not. That wasn't a thing yet. There were no tests. That was the last time I was sick. And maybe it was, maybe it wasn't COVID. It might have been the flu. It felt like the flu. I never lost the taste and the hearing, the taste and the smell or whatever.
You lose your hearing.
Yeah, you know how you do when you have
that
COVID. You lose all
dude.
your senses. I don't. You get sick and you just go straight deaf, right?
You want to hear something that's really interesting about that? Actually, is my mom when she had it, because I actually got it from my mom. And because I just happened to be around her at the time. And the crazy thing is that it's been, a year and a half now since then. In a few months, it'll be actually, well, a few more than that, but it'll be 2 years. My mom still does not have her is it her taste or her smell? It's her taste. Her taste is still screwed up. And
yeah.
I feel terrible. Like, I feel really terrible. Because for me, that never really affected anything for me. It did a little bit, but not really by much. And then, so now, like, when I go visit my parents, like, Mom will make dinner, and then I'll be eating. It's like, this is really good. This is really good. And she's like, well, I wish I knew.
That sucks. She can't even enjoy it.
That's exactly right. Yeah, and she says, like, she'll sometimes and certain things taste. Like, certain things she enjoys now more than she ever did before. Like, it's almost like certain things were just kind of changed around for her.
Yeah.
So, like, things that are, like, spicy now, she doesn't like as much. And she used to love spicy things and vice versa. So, like, that's kind of a life changer when I think about it. Like, I feel so bad for her. I wish it would come back.
Especially with taste, because food becomes such a major part of a lot of traditions or a lot of, like... I mean, just what you... Food is just so important to the human experience in so many ways that, like, having your taste buds change so radically, so quickly, that's got to be hard. Because obviously everyone's taste buds change over time, but to have it happen so quick, that's the kicker.
Well, I do have one quick anecdote to share here.
Sure.
So when I got it, it was okay. So this is interesting. When it was out of my system and I was just completely back to normal, at least to my knowledge, this is a few weeks later, there was one thing that drastically changed. And I don't know if I ever shared this with you at the time or if I did later. It was this. Toothpaste tasted like nasty sausage. like summer sausage. Okay.
I don't want to
And I
brush my
couldn't think of
teeth with sausage. Ugh.
I know. It was horrible. And what do you need to do if you want to keep healthy teeth? You brush them. So, twice a day, I'm taking a piece of like this greasy summer sausage and rubbing it across my teeth. Just smelling it made me so sick to my stomach. It was, and I couldn't do it. Oh, so gross. And the smell was honestly worse than the taste. It was really the smell, but the smell would influence my taste, obviously. And
that's what they say, yeah.
it was really interesting. But I remember a friend of mine, she said, like, maybe, hear me out. By the way, it's back to normal now, but she was like, hear me out. Maybe what you should do is take a piece of sausage and rub it on your mouth and see if it tastes like mint. I never. I thought it was brilliant, but I was too afraid to try it.
It took good cleaning your teeth, though.
Yeah, exactly. It took me about 2 months, about 60 days or so, for that to come back. That was weird. Everything else was fine. It was just that.
I do think that, which I don't know if there even is, and if there is, what the hard science is on the long COVID stuff. I am no doctor, and I don't pretend to even keep up with that information. Honestly, I just don't. So I have no idea. So I don't know what the science is on the long COVID stuff, but anecdotally, it does seem to me that the most people that I hear talk about it are the older folks, which are the people that got hit the hardest with COVID to begin with. So I don't hear I don't hear a lot of younger folks, anecdotally speaking, talking about still suffering long COVID after having it. So to me, it almost feels like this myth because like young people aren't experiencing this. But from my understanding, the older folks are. So again, I don't know what the hard science is on that, but I'm not surprised to hear your mom's still kind of suffering it because she's clearly older than you are, being your mom and everything. And then with you getting your taste back, that seems to make sense to me. I'm someone, my sense of smell and taste have apparently just never been very good. I discovered this especially hard during COVID, where it's like, so these things everyone says they can smell, I don't smell worth a damn anyway. So if I had COVID, I wouldn't know. Probably, I don't.
So like, if your taste and smell isn't that great anyway, I mean, can you like? You know how, like, for some people, especially those who, like, have a complete, like, they're impaired in certain senses. Do you think your other senses are really strong? Like, can you hear really well?
Have you interacted with me? I am deaf. I am blind. I think the reason my taste buds are impaired is because my sense of smell is terrible. I remember having a conversation with someone before that I honest to God thought the whole smell affects your taste. So if you just plug your nose, you won't. I thought that was a myth and a lie because I don't smell things. You can
experience it, yeah.
And someone was like, no, it really does work. And I read all the science. And I'm like, no, if I plug my nose, if I don't plug my nose, it tastes the same. My nose doesn't work. So I think that's why my taste also sucks. I am sense deprived in every way, and physically. Even you might be thinking, okay, well, you named every sense except touch. What about touch? I'm the psychopath at work that grabs stuff straight out of the toaster and it doesn't burn because I don't have any senses.
What's wrong with you?
I don't know. I'm impervious to observing the universe, I guess. I don't know.
It's like, what redeeming qualities are there? What's going on here?
Right? So
I'm just kidding.
No, it's pretty funny though.
So is this the pandemic episode?
It's the pandemic. No, it's not. I just like talking. I just like, we get onto a topic and I don't want to just stop it out of nowhere. But now that you mention it, today is actually the questions episode, I guess. Yeah. Okay. I wanted to talk about things that you wish you could ask anybody, alive, dead, celebrity, not. Questions that you haven't ever had the chance to ask people that you'd like answered. And again, this could be in celebrities. This could just be people in your life where you think about it like, man, I really wish. And this could be now, and this could be the past. This could be the future. You could be like, man, maybe I wish I had asked my dad about the birds and bees sooner, or whatever. I don't know why that's the topic that came to my mind first, but it could be like that kind of stuff, like questions that went unanswered.
Oh. Well,
yeah.
my brain goes a million places. This is an interesting topic.
It is a million places. I wasn't sure where we're going to go. Like the celebrity ones that come to my mind first are like one of my idols growing up was like Teddy Roosevelt, right? I want to ask him about like what it was like to have the bravery to go through the Rough Riders, like just to have that man's energy, right? To sit down and have a conversation about that. So it could be like celebrity stuff like that. It could be more personal and vulnerable with like family and stuff too. It could be anything.
My first thought did go to celebrity myself, but not to like a historical figure like that.
Sure.
For me, it was more like if I had the opportunity to like sit down with specifically George Harrison of the Beatles.
Okay.
Now he died about 20 years ago, but him specifically because I feel like his. Just based on, I'm a huge nerd for these guys. I think most people listening know that, but he was the only guy that kind of really kept a level head on his shoulders after the band broke up, and I counts things more accurately than like the other Beatles did. They'd like start making things up, whether they meant to or not. So I feel like it would be really interesting to sit down with him and just kind of ask him a few questions, but not the questions that everybody asks. See, I've thought about this stuff before, so you're getting me thinking now. I always wanted to ask stuff like I always wanted to ask like any of the Beatles, specifically George, this in the studio, like who went to the bathroom the most, like who was it, like who had the bubble guts the most.
Oh, that would be so like, good.
Questions like no one asks. That's why I love people like Howard Stern, because he really asks some wild, outlandish questions that no one else like asks. So anyway, I would ask something like that, like what kind of toilet paper did you use? Or like was Ringo always like taking a crap? Like who was clogging the toilet? Stuff like that I think would be really funny. I'm just getting it started, then I'll bring it back to you. But a personal one that I would ask, I think about my my grandpa Jerry. I called him Pawpaw. He died about 5 or 6 years ago, and he was in the Navy. And when I was a kid, I knew that he was like in some branch of the military, but I didn't really know much, and I never really thought to ask. But then after he died, funny enough, is when I kind of was at an age to where that interested me more, and I wish I could ask him to tell me stories. Because like a lot of people's grandparents who were in the military, like just kind of without regard, just told their stories. Because that's a lot of people, that was their life.
Right.
And for my grandpa, that wasn't his life, but it was a huge part of his life for when he was young. And but I never really heard many stories, and now I kind of wish I knew them because, these old these veterans and those who have passed away, like there's fewer and fewer of them with this knowledge and this experience. There's a word I'm trying to think of that I can't think of. Not insight, but like this. Just, I guess, kind of like this insight into what it was like during this time, being there. And that's slowly going away, and now I wish I would have asked him more about that. So that's a personal one, I guess. So there's one of each to start it off.
Yeah, if I was going to try to match that, thinking about like a musician that I respect a lot in a lot of ways was, and you kind of know this when I visited you, Elvis Presley, right?
Mm-hmm.
Lived a wild life, but like towards the end of it, it just seemed like it got sadder and sadder. Like the way I see Elvis's end of life, it just seemed like it must have been incredibly lonely. And there are questions that I would want to ask the later life version of him. If I could sit down and somehow like be a friend of his, right? Because I think he needed a friend, like a good friend, not just like a yes man.
Absolutely.
Right? I think he was surrounded by yes men and just entourage or whatever, but a friend, right? And say like, one, I want to ask, was it worth it? Knowing where he came from and how he grew up, right? would he do it
Yep.
again, or did he have regrets? And then especially when you talk about, like, you and I both are trying to respectively, like on YouTube, make an audience, making things for other people. In a lot of ways, that's Elvis as a musician did that. He made things for other people. What that experience was like, the whole, was it worth it? What would you change? And to get his perspective on that in his later life. And then, and I like your question about, like, it really humanizes people, the whole, like, who poops the most? But,
Oh yeah.
like, I would really love to pick his brain just about, like, tell me about, from his perspective, tell me about your family. Tell me about your
the really personal stuff. Yeah.
Like, what would he say? We know after the fact about, like, stuff that we know about people talking about him or coming out that knew him or whatever. But from his side of things, I would love to hear that end of it from him specifically, especially from that sort of insider point of view.
You brought that up in a particular way because it's funny because, those questions, like a lot of these musicians, including him, because I've seen a lot of his interviews, like he's never, I've never seen him answer, was it worth it? But like other things about family he's talked about, but it's different when because he's kind of a goofball on his interviews, like on camera. So it'd be interesting if you could actually just one-on-one sit down, let's just talk man to man here and really get a real answer. Like that is really intriguing to me. I'd want to ask the exact man that same question. Because it's funny, he's the perfect example, and he's not the only one, but a sad prime example is the guy who kind of has it all, but also like has nothing. Like, especially near the end there.
Yeah.
And at least emotionally speaking.
Because that's the other thing that I want to ask him too, but I just don't know how I would ask it. But like, I would ask him why when it came to like all the drug use and stuff. Right? Was it because he was just such a lonely individual? Was it just because he was living the rocker lifestyle? Was he trying to compensate for something? I want to ask, like, why? Like, how did you turn to this? Was it just for recreation? Or, I don't know. It comes from a place of, like, deeply caring about somebody. And this is a celebrity, for sure. So, like, there's plenty of people that struggle with this quietly at home that I definitely heart out for. But if, talking about musicians, someone that I know, getting that perspective from an individual that lives the way he does, but still turns to this stuff. What was missing in his life, And I would want to ask that. I don't know.
No, I think that's good. I think that's great. You got me thinking about, you mentioned like Teddy Roosevelt earlier.
Yeah.
Thinking like, what other presidents would I want to ask a question to? Like, I feel like it'd be cool to sit down and have a conversation with Lincoln.
For sure.
Especially during, during the thick of it all and how stressful that was. Kind of a like, I don't know. I don't even know exactly what I would ask, but just to try and get some insight into what he was thinking and how he was handling the stress of the war and everything. That would be interesting to me. I don't know what specific question would I ask? Because I'm assuming you'd have one question, right?
It could be like, this is just kind of a thought experiment where not a thought experiment, like a thought exercise where any number of questions are totally okay.
Okay.
Yeah. I'm not saying like you only get one question. What's it going to be? I'm just trying to sort of spitball any of them that you can think of that would matter to you, because obviously there could be like a zillion questions that you ask that are like vaguely interesting. Like, oh yeah, what's your favorite color? But like, what would actually matter to you? Right.
Well, I think the thing that bounces back to me the most, because as soon as I started to talk about Lincoln, I like the humanizing questions for some reason.
Which, not to put down favorite color, I just thought, a very common question,
Sure. Right, exactly. And that's kind of why I go to the humanizing questions, because there's so many, like, documentation that shows, especially obviously with celebrities, that shows those questions have been answered. So don't ask it. Ask something that hasn't been asked before. Yeah. So I'm going to go to Lincoln here. Now, I haven't thought about this much before compared to the Beatles thing, but I would love to ask Lincoln. Well, Lincoln, I would ask him about his childhood crushes. That's what I'd ask him about.
Yeah.
Tell me about your child, like just kind of talk to me. Let's talk about your childhood crushes and what happened. right? Like did you know, what was your idea of a perfect date when you were 14 with a girl, taking a girl out? What was that?
That's actually a really good question, because it would be different from, I don't know when movies were invented, but like, you know, dinner and movie is a very common date. But like, especially the further back you go with these celebrities, it's like, what would an ideal first date look like to you? That would be kind of interesting.
Right. So I think that would be really interesting. And especially even thinking of the perspective of like a very aged, very aged Lincoln, because I'm picturing myself like asking him, like, you know, not too long before he died. Like, I'm just picturing him like recalling back and just going, here's what it was, you know. That's interesting to me. By the way, I'm going to do a little side tangent here really quick. These videos have been recommended to me a lot on YouTube lately, and I've been kind of going down these rabbit holes of videos, so things that were filmed in like the 50s and 40s of people who were alive in like the late 1800s, recalling their lives.
Yeah.
And it's a weird time thing in my head. Like, there's like, and obviously it makes sense, right? We could film long before the 50s, but just watching these older folks talk about their childhood in the 1870s or 1880s, it's bizarre. Like, in the scheme of it all, that's not that long after Lincoln was alive. So it's just, it's all a weird like time shift. I can't think what the word is, but it messes with your sense of time.
It does.
I don't know if you've ever seen those, but
I haven't seen those specifically, but I've seen like graphs and stuff where the ones that get me are like, this thing happened at the same time, this other thing, but there's two things that you don't realize would have happened at the same time. And I can't think of things off the top of my head because my brain just doesn't hold on to some kinds of information. And apparently that's one of them. But like, it's one of those things where it's like, freaking. Oh, the common one is Cleopatra of Egypt lived just as far away from the Great Pyramids being erected as NASA landing on the moon. Right? Like, those are two wildly different things, but she lived like roughly in the middle of them. You know what I mean?
That's weird.
Yeah, that's one of the really common ones. But then there's other ones too, where it's like Napoleon was doing this thing at the same time that the Aztecs were just founded. I think that's one. I think it was like Napoleon was alive at the same time the Aztecs were like just a civilization. And when you think of the Aztecs, you think that they're like ancient, but they're not, or something like that. It's something like that. I might be wrong, but like graphs like that, anything with time. I think because I have such a warped sense of time, particularly fascinate me.
It can get weird in your head with that, yeah. So I was just thinking about this too. I think it'd be interesting to go back and like talk to like my dad when he was like in his 20s.
Yeah.
And I'd want to ask him what he wanted to do.
Well, that's a good one.
Like, what do you want to be? Because his trajectory didn't go quite the way I think he thought it was going to go. And I would love to ask him when he's like just fresh out of high school maybe, and just make friends with him and just say, hey, like, what do you want to do, like, professionally? Like, what do you want to be when you grow up? And to see what he would say at that age. Because I just to see what it is compared to how he tells his story now and stuff. I think that'd be interesting.
That would be a good one.
Because what else?
I feel like I could probably ask my parents the same thing, although they may have mentioned it, because I feel like I kind of have an idea already, maybe, because maybe they've talked about it. Because I remember what my parents have talked about, like going to school for and kind of like what they were into and that kind of thing.
Yeah.
I know like my mom was like into photography, and I know my dad was kind of like into automotive stuff. So like, and maybe that wasn't the first things that they landed on, but I kind of know some of that stuff. But like that would be,
I guess what I really mean though,
as like a kid,
sorry,
like if you were like like if they were like when you were 10. What did you want to be when you were 10? That I'm not sure.
Because that's kind of what I mean. I was thinking a little bit older than that, of course, but I was thinking, but obviously I could ask my dad now, right, just like you could, but I think them at that part of their lives is the big part for me.
Yeah.
Like, what would your dad say when he was 20 to you? How would he say it? That's the stuff that really interests me. Like, how would that reaction go, and what would he say, and everything. So that'd be one. What else?
Well,
I know
when you
more.
mentioned what did you say earlier when you were talking about George Harris? You were also talking about your grandpa? Was that who you said was in the military?
Yes, my grandpa. Yeah.
Because I was thinking when I was trying to kind of like match that, I was thinking sort of similar lines here. If I could go back and ask my grandpas, which have passed on now, to like give their perspective on what family life was like raising my parents at the time. My grandpa on my mom's side, I got to know. He was still around for a long part of my life. He actually only just passed away last year. So he made it a long time. But I didn't really get the opportunity to talk to him about a lot of personal family stuff. We talked just about random stuff, but not a lot about personal family stuff. So it'd be interesting to actually go back and take the opportunity to ask about, like, hey, what was it like raising my mom? And then on my dad's side, my dad's dad, that grandpa, I never got to know. He passed away when I was like 1 year old or something like that. So I've never really got the chance to meet him at all to be able to remember. So it'd be I'd have to get to know him at all because I don't know him. But besides just asking him, hey, who are you? Just, ask him the same thing. Yeah. Like, what was it like raising my my dad? Because I kind of know from my dad's point of view, him talking about his dad, obviously, and talking about his mom with my grandma, obviously. And I got to know her a bit. She passed away many years ago as well. My dad's parents passed away. Again, like I said, my dad's dad passed away when I was like 1. And I think my dad's mom passed away when I was like, God, I don't remember the year. Because again, it was like elementary school. So that's the years where my brain just doesn't function. So maybe I was like 7 or 8 or something. I don't remember what year it was exactly. I was just young. So it would be really interesting to know, like, what they would have to say. Like, what was it like raising my dad? What was he like? I know what he says he was like. What would you guys say? That would be kind of interesting.
Well, now you got my brain going some more after you brought that up. So that makes me think, this is going to be a weird, like, time travel thing in a strange way, but hear me out here. So my grandpa that I just mentioned was on my mom's side. Now, on my dad's side, his dad died like a long time ago, long before I was born. His dad died young. So I never knew my grandpa Duquette, I guess, if you'd want to call him that.
Right.
And then my dad's mom died almost exactly 1 year after I was born. So there's like 1 or 2 pictures of her holding me as a baby, but I don't remember her, right? Kind of like similar with you, what you were just explaining. Like they died when you were like 1.
Mm-hmm.
And the thing is, though, is that my dad has always spoken so highly about his mom. And her name was Marilyn. And I was the first next generation of Duquettes to be born. And so she was able to be alive for that. And he said that, that was a big deal for her to see that. Because my dad didn't have me till he was almost 40. So, like, time was moving on. It's like, is she going to get a grandkid?
Right.
That sort of thing. And she got one, which I think is sweet. And she got to see that before she passed away. But there's so much I want to know about her. Because, first of all, she was in the Chicago Symphony, Chicago Orchestra. And she played the cello. So music has been in the family forever. But I think the thing I wanted to ask the most was actually about me. Because there's this, she died of, so here's what she thought of me. Okay, so this is the story that my dad tells.
Yeah.
So I guess I'll say this. I want to ask her what she thought about having a grandchild and seeing me. Okay? And if I could go back somehow and ask her that, just with the knowledge of her knowing me as a baby. And the reason why is because my dad tells a story about her telling him a story before she passed away. So she died of cancer, and she had these stories. She told my dad about these dreams she was having months before she passed away, and she was having these dreams about me as a baby, like shrinking down, I guess, and like I'm in her, and like I'm a baby kicking away the cancer cells, like I'm just kicking them away.
Oh.
And I thought that's such a sweet and interesting dream. So clearly she loved me, I'm assuming, and I thought that was really sweet and an interesting thing. So anyway, with that context, I thought it'd be really interesting to know her thoughts on finally getting her grandbaby and what she thought. So that, you got me thinking about that.
Yeah. You know, it's
Isn't that interesting? Little baby just fighting off cancer cells.
what a weird. Well, maybe that was I don't know. Like part of me is like maybe she thought like you being about would bring so much joy that you were like the miracle cure she needed or something. Maybe even not to so much
That's kind of
beat
what I mean.
the cancer, but just to like maybe even bring her peace or joy and what she had left. I don't know. That sounds really romanticized in the like in the novel sense, like the romanticized notion of like passing on generations or whatever. It's just a really, I don't know. That's a really cool idea.
Yeah.
I don't know if I found the right words for that, but just a really cool idea.
I know exactly what you mean. But at the same time, I was going to say at the same time, I don't know if that stuck for the whole time, because I know also not long before she died, this is another story they tell. Apparently they were at her house, my mom, my dad, and her, and I think one of my dad's brothers. And I was obviously like one. I was crawling around, and apparently my grandma's husband, so I guess that would have been my step-grandpa, he had his gun, a handgun, underneath the bed.
Oh no.
And I apparently it was undone, like the case it was in, or maybe it wasn't in a case, I don't know. But they say that I came crawling out and I was dragging the gun. It wasn't loaded or anything, but like I was dragging out a gun as a little baby, like just kind of looking at it, like, okay, let's pick Alex up. We're done.
I have this one. I don't remember ever touching a gun because I don't think my dad kept them there. But I have this weird memory for some reason because I growing up with my brother, we would play and hang out and talk to each other or whatever. I have this weird memory where both of us were afraid of going into my dad's closet in our hometown because that's where the guns were, and I don't think they were ever there. I think my dad kept them in a safe in the garage that I know was there. But for some reason, I do have a memory as a kid at one point in time being afraid of the closet because there were things in there that we weren't allowed to have. And I don't know if we fabricated that experience. That would be something kind of fun to ask my dad now. It's like, did you ever keep guns in the closet? Or is that something my brother and I just invented when we were like 5 for no reason? Were they ever there? Because I don't think we ever had like grabbed them or anything, because I don't think they were there. But that was something, I have a vague memory of like being afraid of that possibility. I don't know why.
That's a whole nother avenue to think about, is like just asking your parents, like questions just from like maybe just 15, 20 years ago, like when we were just young.
Yeah.
Because I think about like my mom had me when I was 0 when she had me, but she was 25, and I think, oh my God, if I were 25 and I had a kid. So like I would want to ask my mom something like what did you feel like you were just complete, like how did you feel when you had a kid? Like, did you feel ready at all, or did you feel completely lost and confused? What was your support system like at that time? Like those are some questions, which I guess I could still ask now, but I feel like asking at the time that's still what I kind of want to hone down on, is like asking her at 25 how she feels about it.
Yeah, trying to remove the power of hindsight, right? You want to get back to that raw emotion, because I can't imagine, which I'm almost 30, I can't imagine anyone at 25 being like, yes, I was ready for a family. Because me, at my age, I'm like, no, I am not ready for a family.
Right, exactly.
So I can't imagine. That's wild, yeah.
It's just weird, but yeah, obviously, like, I could ask her now, but yeah, just once again, she's 25 years removed from that, or more. So it'd be interesting to hear it from that point of view.
Well, I hate to stop, but I hope everybody at home...
Weston, don't stop us! Don't stop us!
Talking about these I don't know, I was trying to make a parody.
It's okay.
I hope this maybe brought up some questions for all of you at home to think about and even ask. If you thought of any really good ones, share them, because I'm actually curious. Share them on Twitter, or like in the comment section of, if you're watching this on YouTube, in the comments, or if you're listening on Spotify, leave a Twitter at Profoundish Pod. I'd just be curious to know what like random questions you'd ask celebrities or family, because I'm just personally curious. So do that.
Yeah, we'd love to know.
And then in the meantime, we'll move on over to our game. We'll see how successful this is.
Oh, God.
You'll know why when we get to it. Listen to some ads.
Yeah, listen to them.
This is the worst transition. Alex, every time you felt bad about not knowing how to end an episode, this is my worst transition to the next segment possible. All right, we'll see you guys on the other side. Profoundish is brought to you in part by A Hasty Podcast, my own personal podcast talking about life, games, media, and sometimes featuring guests. Look for it on YouTube, Spotify, or wherever you listen to podcasts.
Profoundish is brought to you in part by The Two-Piece Podcast, a show where my significant other and I compare and contrast our top 5 lists on a variety of topics. Not only is it fun, but we also provide facts and trivia about our topics. Come laugh, learn, and listen to The Two-Piece Podcast on your preferred platform of choice.
Welcome back, everybody, to the second half of this episode, where we usually play some kind of game. And we are still playing a game, but, like, this is, like, listen, Alex.
Oh,
it's
boy.
Not,
okay, this is interesting.
I don't know what direction this is going to go. Maybe I should have given you some warning and some prep time on this one, all right? But in the vein, it's nothing. Listen. It's because it's sometimes very difficult to come up with questions, all right? And this is like the questions episode.
Yeah.
So this could be as serious as you want it to be or as silly as you want it to be. I don't know what's going to happen. What do you say to you and I play a little truth or dare?
Oh, my God. Okay. Yeah, we'll do truth or dare.
And this is what I meant. Like, I don't really know. We don't really particularly keep too many secrets necessarily from each other, but I just don't know if there's any. I think if there's any burning questions that we want to ask each other that we haven't had the opportunity, now's a good time to do it. Or, of course, you can get out of it by performing some sort of dare instead. And this was kind of inspired by we did several weeks of Never Have I Ever. So I figured, what's another like weird sort of like sleepover type game that you know we could play? And like Truth or Dare is a classic one. You know what I mean?
It is. Yeah. Okay. I think this could be fun. This kind of plays in. We could do a mix of both. We'll see how the mood strikes us at the right time. But this could be the exact definition of Profoundish. Get a little deep. Get a little silly, get a little serious. We'll see.
That's what I was thinking. So there's no like necessarily like any points or winning or losing this. It's just kind of just a little get to know each other type game type thing.
Yeah, I like it.
And as the guest on this episode, Alex, I'll let you decide if you want to go first as the person asking or go first as the person answering.
Why don't you ask first?
All right, I'll do that.
And
first things
I'll
first,
let you
of
set
course.
the tone.
I'll set the tone, set the mood. All right.
Yeah.
For everyone at home, if you're not familiar with Truth or Dare, the rules are fairly simple. One person asks the other, truth or dare, and that person answers truth and has to answer the absolute truth about whatever question the other person comes up with, or dare, in which case, instead of having to answer a question, they have to perform some kind of dare, some kind of thing, right? And so with that in mind, I'm going to add a little bit of spice to this, as in, if you say truth, and I ask you a question, but you really don't want to answer it, you can still go back and say dare instead.
Oh, boy. Okay.
But that does kind of mean that we know you're avoiding a question. So take that as you will.
Okay.
That's your get out of jail free. If something strikes a nerve where you're like, no, I don't want to talk about this, you can get out of it.
This could, I'm starting to get excited. This could get juicy.
It could. I'm not trying to betray any trust here, but, I'll start with Alex, truth or dare?
Truth.
Let's start with a classic one. What's your biggest fear? This can be as existential as you want it to be.
Change.
Change?
Change.
Oh, change. I thought you meant change the question. Change.
No.
I won out. I'm like, really?
No, jokes aside, change is by far my biggest fear. I hate it. I'm afraid of it. Even though I have faced it many times, as we all do, I fear it to a significant flaw, I would say. It's gotten in the way of... Change has gotten in the way of relationships for me because I didn't want to change things. In fact, it's gotten better over time, but I would say overall, just anything revolving around change. I like comfort, and it's a struggle because, by the way, this is what the song Gravity Man is about on my album, Songs from Sangamon Street. Check it out.
Yeah.
And I want changes to happen because I know change can be a very good thing. It helps you grow. You change. But I am so afraid of it. And that's why I'm so afraid of it, because I know that it can be so good for me. So I'm afraid of things a lot of the time that I know need to happen to me, but it's change. So I answered it kind of long and repeated myself, but change is by far my biggest fear.
That's okay. I'm actually happy you mentioned Gravity Man. Everyone check out Songs from Sangamon Street by Alex Duquette. He's got a new album out. Gravity Man, one of my favorite songs on the album, asks many times or states many times through the song, I want to know. And that's kind of like where the questions comes from, right? Like that you have questions and you want to know the answers. So that's... But
I'm safe on the ground and I'm locked in a moment. And I don't want to go anywhere, but I want to know. It's a back and forth. Yeah, listen to it.
Very good song. Give that a listen. That's your plug.
Thank you so much. Well, that was sweet. Okay. Well, I guess I'll meet you on the same playing field, and I guess I have to see if you're going to say truth or dare. Truth or dare?
What if I never
you already know what I'm going to ask?
I'm just going to ask dare every single time. You're going to be like, wait a minute. I've been played. Truth.
All right. Weston, what is your biggest fear?
Let's see. If I had to think about it, I like your answer with change. I like that, but I don't want to copy you. So I'm going to try to take that. If it is
change, it is.
Well, like there's things that I fear that I think are kind of like on the same like level, right?
Okay.
And I think one of my biggest fears, right on the same level of fear of a change, rather, is and this is a classic one. I'm going to say the fear of failure, because it goes hand in hand with the fear of change. The fear of trying to do something new, but then failing at it, and then being flat on your face with nothing to show for your failure. Wanting to, so that kind of plays hand in hand a lot, like striking out and saying, there's this thing I'd really like to try to do, or something like that, and saying, well, but if I did, I'm going to suck at it, and I'm going to fail, and then I'll have no backup. Whereas it would be far safer to do the thing that I know I can succeed at, which is often whatever I'm doing. So that's why it goes hand in hand with the fear of change, because often the fear of failure goes with finding a place to be safe and comfortable and complacent. So I think not necessarily just the change aspect, because I'm someone who can get very comfortable in one spot for a long time, and then eventually I get stir crazy and I'll want change. But that fear of failure does hold me back. And I think that's a classic one. I think a lot of people fear failure. So I don't think I'm really treading any new, insightful ground here. But I do think that that's a big one. And especially even with the small stuff. Maybe like in relationships, maybe there's been people I've been interested in, but I can't handle the idea of being rejected. So, I'm okay with being friends or acquaintances with somebody. Or maybe it's something like even jobs, right? Like taking on a new job or a new responsibility, but I'm afraid I'm going to fail it. Or maybe actually one that was a big part of it. I recently went back to school. Longtime listeners might recall I've talked about this before. I went back to school back in December and I went back to school last August and graduated in December. It took a long time for me to come back to going back to school because I had taken such a long break. I was afraid of going back and just failing at it, basically. That kind of stuff, which I did overcome that fear with a little encouragement, but that's one of those things that holds me back, where I'm afraid of coming back to something or starting something new because what if I just fail and it turns out that it's a waste of my time? And I think that's something that I just can't stand, the idea of wasting my time, even though sometimes not pursuing new things is the waste of my time. But, you know, that's easier to understand with hindsight.
Right. Yeah, I mean, just because, you, in your own words, it's not treading anything new doesn't mean it's not any less crucial or important to the human experience. I mean, like, that is so common. I mean, and I do definitely feel that way too, so I can definitely relate to you. You know, you never know what's on the other side. But that's the problem. It really goes back to the gravity man effect. It's like, I want to do this thing, but I'm so afraid to do it. But God, I want to know, but I'm really afraid, and I'm safe here, and it's okay, and I'm okay with it.
Exactly.
And then you look at people around you, and it looks like some people, and I actually mentioned this in the song in the bridge, like, it looks like some people could just do it, and it makes you so jealous. Like, how can you just go do these things? How is it that easy for you? At least I look at it that way. And I'm like, why can't I do that? I want to do that. You know, it's a whole thing.
I think so. I think this is something. I think this is a common part of many of the human experience for many people. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, that's my answer.
All right. Well, that's a
Alex,
good answer. That's a good start. I guess it's your turn again. Yeah.
Truth or dare?
I don't want to be running around shirtless singing a Bon Jovi song, so I'm just going to say truth because I know you.
Let's get silly with this one. Where's the weirdest place you've peed?
Did you think about this prior, or was this just completely off the top of your head?
Don't worry about where I'm getting my questions.
All right,
you did mention earlier when you talked about George Harris about you know, who pees the most or poops or
who pooped the most.
Yeah, you know, that kind of thing. So yeah.
Okay, let me think about this for a second here. Where's the weirdest place that I've peed? I peed in weird places.
Have I been saying George Harris this whole time? George Harrison.
George Harrison.
I've been saying George Harris this whole time. I'm like, hold up a second. I've had a stroke. George Harrison.
I've had a stroke. Excuse me while I have a stroke.
It's like it's the Beatles. I keep saying George Harris. Someone at home is like, what the hell?
They're like, come on, man, get it right. So obviously I peed outside like most, at least boys have. I mean, girls have too. I had sisters. They peed outside. You know what's funny? I'm trying to think if there's a time where I was like desperate and I just had. I guess technically the weirdest place I peed was on my doorstep.
Okay, see that counts.
So I mean, I was young. I mean, I wasn't that young. I mean, I was old enough to know that I needed to go to the bathroom. So my story was this is at an age where I never used the bathroom at school. I would hold it all day till I could get home. And the thought of me doing that now just makes my my entire bladder sick to its stomach. But anyway, I held it all day and I was running home, but there was a train. So I was running behind and I had to go so bad. So I actually ended up, this is another story to tell, but I actually crawled under the train because the train was moving really slow, and my mom found out and she was like going to kill me because I crawled under. Yeah,
a moving
that's
train?
A real story. It was slow. It was moving very slow, but I had to pee so bad, and I wasn't going to pee right there next to the train. The train would have seen me.
I would have peed on the train.
It was moving very slow, but it was technically moving. And anyway, so
that's giving me anxiety thinking about it now, and I know you lived because you're here now.
I know. I told my mom I'm surprised she didn't just beat the crap out of me right there. But anyway, I was running home. I was nervous about the train thing because I knew my mom was going to find out somehow because I was going to tell her. And then I finally make it to the front door, and as I'm opening the door, I saw my mom, and I started to cry because everything that happened, and I peed my pants right there. I was like 10 or 11. Like, I mean, I wasn't like a kid. Like, I was a kid, but yeah, I peed right there. No, I wasn't 10. 10's like 5th grade. I was probably like 8. Either way.
Man, all that stress, crawling under a train, still didn't make it to the bathroom on time. Oh, my goodness.
Yep.
I'll count that. That took a, there was a story in there. It sounded like you weren't going to have a story, but you did.
Yeah, I had a story. I think that's the weirdest place, just on my doorstep. So somebody had to clean that. I don't think it was me.
It's pee. It'll wash out rainwater.
You know what? I'm not gonna keep it silly. I'm gonna keep it a little more
Sure,
more deep here. That's the route I'm taking with this one.
That's okay. I wanted to have both options available.
I'm glad they're both available, but like, you know what? I can ask you where you peed later. Hey, where'd you pee? Where'd you pee today?
I mean, honestly, yeah, I'd probably tell you anyway, but like, whatever. We're on a show. This is live. It makes it different.
Okay, let's keep this spicy. So, I'm going to keep names out of this.
Okay.
Just for everyone's privacy. But Weston,
yeah,
had a long-term girlfriend in high school, and I think a little bit after.
I did.
I don't remember the timeline of when that ended. But my question to you, excuse me, I'm getting emotional here, is do you ever still think about that? And I'm keeping that vague. But yeah, do you ever still sit down and go, yeah, I remember, just do you ever sit down and think about it? I guess I'll just leave it at that.
It's funny that you should mention that, because today, as of speaking, I got one of those like Facebook memory posts or whatever, where it's like, oh yeah, look back on your memories from whatever it was, 12 years ago or whatever. And yeah, one of them was from her, obviously a post, not from her, but about her. So I was like, literally today reminded of that. So it's funny that you should ask that. Which I'm not bothered by now. So many years after, right? She's married now, actually, which is, I'm happy for her, but like me still, like in my mind, like I don't have a family, right? It feels super weird where it's like she's married now and doing her own thing. I'm like, that's so weird. Isn't it too soon? And I'm like, it's not too soon. We're old now. But
right, yeah.
So do I still think about that? I do. Not all the time, obviously, clearly, but sometimes it comes up in like the most random ways. Like maybe I'll have, which I don't dream very much, maybe I'll have like a random dream about people I know, and like she'll be in it or something, and I'll wake up and I'm like, did I freaking have a dream about, and again, not to go through names and stuff, but did I have a dream about her? What the heck? So like, and again, it was a long-term relationship though. Like you said, we were together for like 5 years and some change or something like that. In an official capacity. So we were together a long time, and at a very impressionable age of your life or whatever, like a very, that's an important time. So there's a lot of change happening in that time. So like, it doesn't surprise me that like that still comes up in my memories, because it was an important time and she obviously was a big part of it. So it doesn't surprise me. But it does still come up, and it's not so much regret, because in a lot of ways, us splitting up turned out to probably be a good thing. I can't think of what I was trying to say, but a good thing, because I think where we were going in life were just two different directions, and I hope she found someone much better for her and makes her happy. Me, I'm doing my own thing, but it actually does. It does come up sometimes in my brain when I'm thinking about life and relationships and people. It comes up. It was a part of my life, and I'm okay with that.
Well, yeah, and it's a significant part of your life.
Yeah.
Because for you, that was like what many would consider like, your first love. Like, I don't know if you would call it that. Maybe you have your own word for it, but along those lines, like the first real significant romantic partner that you have, and of course that's gonna always stick with you. So,
and especially when you talk about
solid
love,
answer.
like we were both going through so much change and figuring ourselves, because that was an important year in our lives. Like as teenagers in high school, going through that whole experience together. man, what love even means now? I'm not even sure today as an adult, right, that I would agree with my younger self what love even is. So just, like when you say like first love, I'd have to say, yeah, she was my first love, but not by the same standard of love that I have now, which is such a weird topic to try to grapple, because it turns into this weird sort of like, I'm happy to not be with her, but like also that's not the right feeling, because it's not like I wanted to get rid of her. She was doing her thing. And anyway, end of the story. It's like there's no hard feelings, but that's still something that like my brain still works its way around every now and again, Yeah. So I think that answers your question.
Yeah, great answer. Great answer.
All right, Alex. Truth or dare?
Just gonna keep it at the truths, man. This is what the people are here for.
This is what the people are here for.
They want the truths.
Okay. Oh, I wonder if it would. I don't want to repeat your question, because I could ask you very much the same thing. I could.
Or ask whatever you want. Ask whatever you want.
I could.
I'm an open book.
I'm tempted. I could ask you the very same thing. Screw it. We'll ask you the same thing. I wasn't going to. I'll ask you the same thing. You still think about your high school thing?
Okay, so
now
from the same time frame.
Same time frame. And I think between you and me, you know which one I'm talking about.
Yeah, because I would consider
you were in
her
more than one relationship, but I think you and I both know which one I'm talking about.
One was much longer lived than the other as well. So, and healthier for me. But that's a different story for maybe another time. Maybe I'll dive into that one day, that relationship. But no, you're talking about the one I had after that.
Yes.
And that went from my junior year to my sophomore year of college. So she was 2 years younger. So like we were splitting up when after she graduated high school. So, but anyway, it was around this. It was a little less time than you, but also we had a little bit of a on again, off again relationship. So there's a couple breakups in there.
Yeah.
So, that is a complicated answer.
Yeah.
If you were to ask me, even just a few years ago, and in fact, you and I have briefly talked about this off podcast before, at least to some extent. But the answer is yes. Of course I do. For the same reasons, for a lot of the same reasons that you have. She was a huge part of my life. She wasn't my first relationship, but she was the first one where I really felt what I would, at the time, just like you said, like at the time I would have considered love, at least puppy love, that sort of thing. Just at that age, it's like I would have done anything for her. That's how strongly I felt at the time. And so, yeah, it's kind of hard to let go of those feelings.
Yeah.
Even now, like not necessarily the feelings for them, but the feelings that you had. Does that make sense? Like some of my I still think about really positive memories with her. I have quite a few, but it's much more about how I felt and what that meant to me at the time. But I do know that she was, of course, 50% of that feeling. So, yeah, I definitely think about that from time to time. It's kind of like you. It's not that often anymore. But every once in a while, when I have a lot of time to just kind of think and reminisce, and I think about those days, it's impossible to not have her come up because she, just like you, she was a huge part of my life for so long. And so, and especially in those years, your teenage years, for me, it was up until I was about 20. Like this, everything is changing so quickly, and it's just they're so emotional during those years, So, yeah. But I guess you worded it really well, and it's similar to you. But the short answer is yes, absolutely. To my knowledge, go ahead.
No, continue your thought.
All I was going to say is I know that she's not married. I don't think she's engaged, but I know that she's in a long-term committed relationship, and I'm happy for her. I think from what it looks like, this is just with brief social media encounters. It's nothing crazy. Looks like it's a very long-term good thing, so I'm happy for them. That's all I was going to say.
And if I may cheat slightly on asking you a slight second question here, but it's just because I'm pretty sure I've nailed this on the head, and it's another plug for you. everyone go listen to Go Sit in the Car from Songs from Sangamon Street by Alex Duquette. There is a single line in there about going to prom on a specific year. That was from The Other Relationship, right? I've nailed that.
I hate to break it to you, but no.
Is it not?
It's not. So that's all kind of... Well, you know what? I'm going to give you a half correct. Correct. Because there was influence, but it wasn't direct.
Okay.
Like, I picked the prom thing because, like, there was some arguments between a couple girls in my life at a time, and I did draw from that, but it wasn't prom specific. So I'm going to give you half.
Because there's a specific line about you're arguing with, in the song, you're arguing with who you're with about who I think the waitress is supposed to be. Yeah. So I was like, I think I know who that's about, but I've never asked you to confirm or deny that. So
I'm going to give you... Well, you're technically pretty close. It wasn't ever related to a prom, but I pulled that them getting mad about another girl, basically, from an experience with her. So I will give that to you.
Got it.
Good job.
Again, second plug. Everyone needs to go listen to the album.
Yep.
Songs from Sangamon Street.
But Go Sit in the Car is like my second or third most listened to song on the record, so I guess people like that one. I didn't expect that. That's
I think
cool.
Of the album songs, that's the most probably like quote unquote shocking, which is like the only one listed in your album as explicit. So if that
right,
means
it's the
anything.
only one. I mean, I write about adult themes in a few places, but that one has an actual naughty word in it, so that kind of throws a couple of them technically. And but also what I love about that song personally, it's become my personal favorite of the album, I think, because what I loved about that and what I wanted to do was capture such a real, raw human moment, but so mundane at the same time. And all it is a couple fighting at like a Walmart or a grocery store. And then, you know what I mean? Because he recalls that time when they were fighting another time, but it takes place in this grocery store. They're in this huge argument, and he's like, you know what, if you're going to act like this, just go sit in the car. Because, so many couples have had that argument. So many. In fact, I've had more than one person tell me, I can barely listen to this because it's too real, which I think is hilarious.
It's like, oh, no.
So I like to capture those really specific human moments that not many people like to sing about because, let's face it, we all have that in common, like those little tiny things, and I blew it out of proportion. So, anyway. Songs from Sangamon Street.
Yep.
All right. I'm sorry, like I know you asked me about the pee thing, but I want to keep it serious, man.
No, continue.
Is that okay? Are you okay with that?
Absolutely. No, I wanted to do at least one serious and at least one silly on my end so that you could feel like you could ask anything. Ask anything. It's truth or dare. That's all their rules are. Truth or dare.
And let's face it, everyone's here for the truths. You know it's true.
I mean, you and I are both here for the truth. You and I both know that, like I said, I gave the option that basically if you didn't want to do it, you could fall back on dare. So honestly, we know what's going to happen.
Right. That's true. Let me see here. When you're answering a question, it's hard to think of a one that you're going to ask.
Right. That's what I meant. It's hard sometimes to come up with like hard-hitting questions that you actually care about. That's what a lot of the first half of this episode was from, in my heart, where that came from was it's hard to think of questions that you want to ask people, but you want to talk to people.
Right. Yeah, that makes sense. Okay, how about this? Truth or dare?
Truth. Sorry, I don't know why I spaced out on that. I was just waiting for you to ask. Truth.
I know, right? I started to ask. I was like, wait, I got to ask truth or dare.
Yeah, you're right.
Has there been a time in our adult friendship, so post-high school,
right,
where you've just been really ticked off and or annoyed with me? And if so, I recall the time. Unless you can't recall the time.
With you in our adult life? No.
Yes. Not as kids when I'm flicking your ears, but as adults. and friends.
No, there's never been a time where you've peeved me in any way as an adult. We've joked about and talked about in the past where, like, when we met with our middle school experience, with you flicking my ears and just kind of generally being annoying. We've talked about that before, but as adults, no, there's never been anything. You've never slighted me, certainly in any way, nor have you ever been annoying to me, or have I ever considered you to be in any way in a negative light, honestly.
Wow. Okay. I guess that says a lot about my self-esteem. I was expecting a different answer.
I'll say, if that's an insecurity of yours, you need not fret. I have had no qualms with you ever. To my memory, even in the slightest way, if you've ever even briefly annoyed me, it clearly wasn't important enough for me to remember now.
Right. That makes sense. I think what made me ask that question was that we've all been here where you got your friend group, and then that one person that's in the friend group isn't there that time, and then sometimes you go like, man, you did that thing that freaking annoyed me, and like, so sometimes I think about that.
Yeah.
You know, like, and just in general, like in a general setting. But that's cool. I'm glad to not have caused any major annoyances.
I can't think of anything specific to like answer this as a truthful answer to this question, but I'm sure there have been times where I've talked about you with other friends when you're not around, because I feel like everyone probably does that. Whether it's because, again,
Sure.
I don't actually remember, whether it's because we're like, oh, what's he up to? And oh, I've heard this. Or if it's even like, oh, Alex is up to this.
Yeah.
I'm certain I've talked about you when you're not around, but I don't remember a time of it being like, that Alex, man, what an asshole.
Right, exactly.
You know
right.
what I mean?
get
Like,
that. Okay.
I don't. Yeah, no, you're in the clear there. I almost hate to have such a simple answer because it's not juicy, but no.
Yeah, there's no juice there, but
Yeah.
but it makes me feel better.
If it makes you feel better, then I'll take it.
That's good.
All right. We're running kind of late. Do you want to do one more round?
Let's do one more round. Why not? It's truth or dare, for God's sake.
I'm going to do one that's this isn't the best way to like be my last question, but this one's going to be more philosophical as opposed to personal. What are your honest to God thoughts on the topic of polyamory?
What's polyamory?
Multiple lovers. So people that are in
that's
like
exactly what I thought it was. Okay.
Yeah. So like people that are in relationships but with more than one other person. So like instead of like monogamy, right? Like one-on-one.
Monogamy. Okay. Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
It's
I thought so, but I didn't want to answer and then end up sounding kind of dumb. Okay.
We live in a time where it's very common to be very accepting of other people's sexual preferences, sexual inclinations, either polyamory, monogamy, or even no relationship. It's very accepting to be of a lot of these things. What are your honest thoughts on polyamory, about multiple lovers?
I guess I see it a few ways.
Yeah.
I know from a personal standpoint, I'll start there. That doesn't interest me, mainly because of how I view relationships.
Mhm.
So I think some people can look at those sorts of relationships specifically from a sexual standpoint. And I know it doesn't have to be just sexual. It can be
Right.
the entire the whole 9 yards. I get that. But I can understand it more from that standpoint only because it's just that is a biological thing in us. However, when it comes to the overall like encompassing relationship, whether it's the sexual part, the emotional part, I just feel like it just doesn't it doesn't work. It'll never work for me, and I'm not interested in doing that. But in general, I feel like it's got to be a really complicated thing, and I don't really understand how people can make that work, especially emotionally. I really feel like we're kind of built to, obviously other people do it different ways, but this is how I feel. I feel like we're kind of really built to have the companion, right? To focus all of your attention and your emotions and your feelings and your trusts, your fears, everything in a companion, right? for the sole purpose of building this relationship together, having a family, whatever. If you're looking at it from that angle, I just don't see how it could work any other way. So I guess that's my take on it. Briefly, but I think that kind of explains it.
That's completely fair. I wanted to throw in a philosophical question about something that I know it's, especially on the internet, it's very common to just align with everybody should feel whatever kind of way they want. But polyamory for me personally has also always been a sticking point with me where I have my own kind of qualms with it. I just kind of want to know what your take was on it.
Yeah. Well, I think at the end of the day, we probably see it in a similar light, because at the end of the day, that's why I kind of spoke more personally. I don't understand how it could work for others, but clearly others do it. So they maybe they know something that I don't know. But
fair.
Yeah, for me, it just and also just from a complete taking out that part of it, it just doesn't also interest me at all. I just feel like it'd be too much to handle.
It's got to be, right? Imagine being like, I'm in a 8-way relationship and we all like have a schedule.
Yeah, just no way. Well, that reminds me of our joke in Caesar.
I was about to bring that up too. If you didn't, I was like, where we have a joke. We did a retelling of the tale of Julius Caesar by Shakespeare, and in it, Caesar's wife, Casca, right? Is that her name?
I think it was Casca. Yeah,
Casca. She's actually in like a polyamorous situation where Caesar's only like one of her many lovers.
Right, and we set it up like we set it up kind of mockumentary style.
Yeah.
So like the camera's following them, and he's really stressed about what's about to happen with Caesar. And he's talking to her, and he ends up calling her. This was like we over exaggerated it from what it was in the actual story, but he ends up calling her a whore, and she's like, "How dare you accuse me of such a thing?" And then it cuts to her, like in a talking head interview, and she's like, "Well, actually, I've got a different man for every night," and then she names all these different men.
You're right. I think it was Brutus's wife. Was Casca Brutus's wife? Because I think it was Brutus that called her whore in our film.
Yeah. Yeah, it was Brutus. I thought you said that.
I think I said Caesar. I think I got confused for a second. Too. Yeah, I think I think it was Brutus. Yeah, Brutus's wife, Casca. Anyway,
but either way, yeah, it was just a funny little scene there.
All right, you get one more.
Final,
hit me.
Final one for you. Let me hit you here. And I guess I can go kind of more like bigger picture too.
I'll go truth.
Something like
I think
that.
I forgot to ask you truth or dare. I'll go truth for mine.
Yeah. Okay. You'll go truth. Okay. Man, this is tough to ask the question. Sorry, you got to give me a second. Can you give me some hold music while I think for a second?
Da na 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 na. Is Jeopardy going to get us in trouble? No, they're not going to. They don't know this podcast exists. Na 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 na.
Keep it up. Okay, too much. And then now it's enough. After 7 notes, it's too much. Let me think about. Okay. How about this?
Yeah.
Do you think? What's your thoughts on the evolution of like how far we've come with technology, artificial intelligence? Do you believe that there's going to come a point to where enough is enough, or is your take more gung ho? Let's see how far we can go with this thing. What's your thoughts on how the evolution of technology is like? Could affect mankind or is affecting mankind? That's kind of my super weird, all over the place question.
I like that question because it's really sci-fi. It's really futurism. These are things that I'm actually really interested in. AI in particular these days is taking off with the popularity of things like ChatGPT and DALL-E and all these different applications and uses of AI that just the average everyday person now has the ability to interact with. And that's only going to continue to expand. And that's going to expand not only just in consumer products, but also in industries, and it's everywhere. Things like AI. And I know technology doesn't just encompass AI, but currently AI is a huge part of what's changing the most rapidly right now in the public eye. And I think that as we progress forward in terms of technological progress, humanity's relationship to technology has always been very close. Technology hasn't been as quite as intimate to humans until more recent years. Like our relationship to literally like early flint and steel type stuff, like being able to make fire, or like, you know, being able to make the first tools, hammers, heck, even weapons like bows or stuff. Like at one point in time, our relationship to them was distant, but almost necessary to the progression of mankind having access to more resources and an easier way of life. You know, being able to farm and till and hoe farmland so that we could stay stationary and create more abundant food so that we could have longer lasting lives and bigger families, etc., has been a necessary component to humans living longer, healthier, and, in my opinion, more qualitative lives. I know there's a huge movement for like, I just want to give up all technology and move to a shack in the woods somewhere. But objectively, most people can't live that life and survive. Like they don't know how to subsist live on using just their hands. Objectively, technology has made the most people's lives better. Moving forward into the future, there's a lot of terrifying things about technology that I think attacks us in a new way, where physically we have benefited from technology, emotionally and mentally, and maybe even spiritually. We are now under attack of discovering what even makes us human. Like right now with AI, one of the biggest concerns is misinformation, the spread of seemingly realistic information in terms of images, news, etc., but was otherwise generated from an AI, using that information to trick people into not knowing who online we're speaking to. Are we talking to other people? Are we being convinced that a false reality is the true reality? That's information. Moving forward, it might attack us on a deeper spiritual level, where we even ask ourselves whether or not we're any more human than the common everyday AI. And an AI becomes so seemingly human that we can have relationships with AI. You can do that now. There are apps out there where you can have an AI girlfriend or boyfriend or other friend, right? Like that exists, where you can start to replace real life humans with technology. And as that line continues to blur, the real question becomes, what makes us any more human than any other thing, right? I think that's something that is going to become extremely important. And the answers that us as a society will have 50 years from now will not be the same answers that we had 50 years ago. I think in general, technology has done the best at allowing us to live healthier, happier lives in general. But the problems we will have to face in the future will be different and alien to us to a certain extent. I think the merger of technology and people, mankind, is basically inevitable at this point, because mankind, just anecdotally observing how we interface with technology, we're also obsessed with playing with the latest toy, the latest invention, that it just seems inevitable that whatever new innovation we come up with, everyone's going to want to play with it. There's a weird, intimate connection with it. And at the end of the day, technology are the things that people are making. It's the stuff that we are making for ourselves. It's not this otherworldly alien thing that just dropped down out of space and we're trying to figure it out. We invented this stuff. So in a weird way, a lot of this technology is, in fact, an extension of ourselves. So I don't know. I play with this idea where we talk about technology almost becoming superior to mankind, or taking advantage of mankind, or like in a Skynet universe being adversarial to mankind. But really, at the end of the day, we invented it. It's an extension of us. Maybe even a mirror image of ourselves. I can get really weird about this and talk about it for a while, but I'm someone who's personally
Yeah, me
really,
too.
I'm really personally optimistic about technology. I just also understand that it comes with a whole new set of anxieties and new problems that we will have to face. But it's not that we can't overcome it. It's just new. But that's never stopped us before. And I also have a lot of optimism for mankind's tenacity and ability to overcome, durability. Humanity's never been a group of people to just, lie down and just give up. So I look forward to the future.
Right.
I also look forward to being a cyborg one day. So, whatever.
Take it as you will. Well, we keep having to go back to topics later because I would love to actually sit down and really have this talk with you on the podcast. Because I see certain points and I don't see others. Well, really all I mean is that I think what I really mean by that is that I think I'm less optimistic than you are in certain ways, but I don't want to get into why right now, but I would love to go back and circle around to this.
Yeah,
because
I fully
from
understand.
a human element to it.
Oh, yeah.
So it's interesting. So you got me thinking about it, but we'll wait. That's a great answer, and it's well explained.
That's for the sci-fi and futurism episode.
Hey, it's coming.
All right.
Could be next week. You never know.
I hope that answered your question.
I guess that's all. Well, yeah, you did. You did great. A+.
We'll wrap it up there. I feel like we could definitely return to a truth and dare type thing in the future as well. There's so many more things we could ask each other.
I know.
But that's going to have to do it for this episode because
Weston,
we are running long.
Wait a second. I'm going to stop you.
Okay.
I'm going to stop you. I'm sorry. Do not make this another 8-episode saga.
No.
Of truth or dare, though, okay? Don't do that.
I'm not going to. I don't have Oprah's list of best truth or dare questions.
That's true.
I will can this for the time being and return to it, or you can return to it when the time feels right.
Perfect.
In the meantime, thank you all so much for listening to Profoundish. Alex, where can we find you?
You can find me on the internet at alexduquette.net. You can find everything I do there. Usually where that will end up routing you to eventually. Could very well be you already plugged my my album, so we'll go to my YouTube channel. It's right there on the website, or it can take you right to my YouTube, which is where I do medleys. Medleys are basically where I take a bunch of long songs, take little snippets out, and make all of those into one song. And it's I usually do it for TV show medleys. So if you want a little nostalgia trip, go check out my channel. You might like what I have to offer. What about you?
You can find me at my gaming channel, Magic Man Mo. I do a bunch of stuff there. I've recently been diving into some nostalgic old web games on my channel. So if you're into Papa's Pizzeria, you can check out an episode of that I did. So if you're into games, check that out. I also have a website, westonhasty.com, where I post all my other stuff that you can find. I do poetry. I've got my social media stuff you can check out. Look for @WestonHasty on your TikTok, Instagram, Twitter, those kinds of things. In the meantime, whatever you do, thank you so much for listening to Profoundish. You can find us on YouTube, Spotify. We actually have technically on YouTube, which is a fun thing. We're a part of their youtube.com/podcasts. We're in the podcast playlist somewhere. I think I'm not sure how it works yet.
Oh.
It's kind of new-ish. So we're a podcast on YouTube, which is just kind of cool. So check that out. We're everywhere. If you're listening to this, you know where to find us. Give us a 5 stars, subscribe, follow, answer that Q&A question down below if you're on Spotify. Follow us on Twitter, Instagram, TikTok @ProfoundishPod. And once again, thank you all so much for listening. And until next time, goodbye. Woohoo! Wahoo! It's me, Profoundish.
It's me, Profoundish. Hello.